Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. This week's second episode, very unusual, but we do have a second episode. The episode I released yesterday, Ask an Assistant 58, about March housekeeping, Employee Appreciation Day on Friday, time zone reset, daylight saving time, rather. Daylight saving time this weekend, Saturday night into Sunday morning. Get ready for both of those. You can listen to that, Ask an Assistant 58. But today, Ask an Assistant 59, we are talking with our esteemed colleague, Caitlyn, who asks, Jess, can you tell me about the difference between remote, in-office, and hybrid work arrangements? Caitlyn, you know it would be my pleasure to talk about it. Thank you so much for asking. And to anyone out there listening who has a question that they'd like me to answer here on the show, I'd love to hear from you at askanassistant.com. Another big thank you, not only to Caitlyn for asking, but a big thank you to Jeremy Burrows of the Leader Assistant podcast for having me back on the show this week. It's been several years. The last time we spoke on the podcast, I had just moved to California. It was 2018. I want to say 2018 or 2019, 2018, because we had just moved to California. And now we are talking several years later, 2025, and we've been in New York for 3.5 years. So lots has changed for both of us. Go ahead and give that episode a listen. There will be a link to that in the show notes, and a big welcome to anyone here who is listening as a result of tuning into the Leader Assistant podcast. I am so glad you're here, and I hope you'll like it over on this side of the executive assistant podcast sphere. So welcome. Big thank you to Jeremy. And back to the topic at hand, different work situations, arrangements, conditions, whatever you might like to call it. We are going to talk today about what it means to be fully remote, a hybrid worker, and an in-office person when it comes to your work arrangement. Fully remote means that you can work from home or another location, like a co-working space. Maybe your company helps pay for that. Maybe you rent it yourself to get a little distance between work and home. Not quite severance levels of separation. Anybody listening, watching rather, that show, my husband and I are 3 episodes in and super bummed out already. But it is a very good show. The acting is great. The style of the show is great. Really intriguing. Can't wait to see what happens next. But yes, not quite severance levels of separation between work and home, but definitely a separation from your company HQ, if you will. Being fully remote means that even if you go work from a coffee shop, a library, your dining room table, somewhere else, basically just that you never have to go into the office or travel for work. Remote work also means that you can live just about anywhere you want. In the United States, at least, you definitely need to clear it with your company. So for example, when my husband and I made the decision to move from California to New York, we only had one location in California for the business and had to subsequently open a location in New York. So here in the United States, you do definitely need to clear it with your company. You need to see if they already have a location in the state or country that you're hoping to move to. And if they don't, are they willing to put in the effort? Because I know firsthand, even for a company of 2, it is a not insignificant amount of work. It's twice the compliance stuff you have to look for, especially if you're living between 2 states like California and New York. Those are 2 of the hardest states in the country in which to run a business. They are also 2 of the states in the country that have the best worker protections, the best rules and regulations for companies to make sure that people are being paid well and taken care of. But that's a different episode for a different day. Anyhow, getting back to it, remote work means you can live just about anywhere you want. I was fortunate that my company was willing to task me with opening up a new location in New York so I could keep my job. For some, this means moving away from wherever you might be. For others, it means that you can stay where you are, keeping your home, your routines, maybe your kids in school, your favorite vet, your favorite local around the corner coffee shop, like whatever it is. Maybe it even encompasses your significant other's current job is very location dependent. So by you having a location independent role, that can be a great thing. It's a huge consideration for so many people, myself included. My husband actually was fortunate enough to get snapped up by another department in the company that he'd been working for about a decade. The company he had been working at, with, not for. So my husband had been working at a company, and another department recognized his about a decade worth of experience and snapped him up when we moved to California in 2018. And he's been with the same company to this day through another move to New York in 2021. So just like his ability to be location independent, my ability to be location independent, it is wonderful. And I know for a lot of us out there, it's a huge consideration, whether it's, again, kids, family, significant other, whether maybe it's disability, whatever it might be, like just having the freedom and flexibility to work wherever you'd like is a huge benefit. Working in the office, that's the second style of work. You're in the office. It's quite simple. You report to a designated office or maybe a company mandated location every day from which you work. You know, it could be an office where the other employees of the company are. It could be a client site, maybe a satellite office that is apart from the company HQ. But if the company is mandating or perhaps giving you the option and you're taking it, that you work in a specific location, this is what I'd consider in-office work. Like you have a place, your company, when they put you on salary, they can dictate your hours. They can dictate when and where you do your work. They have given you a place and you have to be there. That's in-office work. Hybrid work, on the other hand, can be a bit fuzzy. Like I only go into the office it's going to be a lot more here in 2025. But for the last several years, I see my executive in person 2 to 6 times a year, depending on what our year looks like. And right now I have 6 confirmed times that I'm going to see my executive in person, and more we're actually meeting to discuss tomorrow. So my work would technically be considered hybrid because I do occasionally go to the office, but I would say it's 90 plus % remote. So a lot of people might not even consider that hybrid. So there are definitely companies that offer a set hybrid schedule. Like I have friends who are allowed to work 1 to 3 days remote per week. Maybe they're only allowed to do 1 or 2 or a handful of days per month. Or at least some people that I know even have the option to work remotely when circumstances demand. Like here where I live in upstate New York, we get pretty gnarly snow days sometimes. And I live around a lot of people who work in academia, and a lot of those folks are still able to run classes. You know, it's not ideal. It's not what people who are paying for higher education and people who are working in higher education want, because there definitely is something to be said for learning and teaching in the same room. But it is really nice that here in 2025, we have the capability, at least, to work remote, whether that's a weather situation. Sorry, I didn't mean to say weather twice. But whether it is dependent on the climate at the time, whether it's you had a personal emergency come up for yourself, for a family member, for a pet, maybe you have a burst pipe at home and you have to deal with the plumber, but you can still take meetings around that. Whatever the circumstances might be, a lot of companies, even if they don't have a formal or set hybrid work situation, they'll at least allow you to work remote when circumstances demand. There certainly are roles that can't be done remotely. Like I would imagine that bank tellers aren't operating from their living rooms. Food service professionals probably aren't cooking up a tasty meal on their decks, but who knows? That could be the future of just about anything. When When it comes to hybrid work, though, I will say specific to our roles as administrative professionals, whether you are a company receptionist, whether you are an administrative assistant, executive assistant, office manager, like wherever that falls for you, in my opinion and my experience, hybrid work is not implemented fairly for administrative professionals. At my last hybrid role, quote unquote hybrid, we had an unlimited PTO bank at the time I got hired that eventually went away. So like that had been a big thing that drew me to the company, was like unlimited PTO, fantastic. And then they switched to any new hires to not have unlimited PTO. But we definitely had a very generous, flexible work arrangement, meaning like you don't have to be in the office at 8 a.m. if that's right when your kids are going to school, if that's right when the worst traffic is because you live half an hour from the office. Whatever your circumstances were, you didn't have to justify it to anybody. As long as you came in and got your work done or stayed home and got your work done, you were allowed to do that. And at the time, it was a global company. I was the only administrative professional on site, and much of my team, a big chunk of it worked at the headquarters in California. But then we did have some distributed people in other countries. So we had like 3 or 4 other countries where folks on my team were. And I really thought, given the fact that everyone else in my office could and absolutely did work from home or come in for half days or, come in whenever they felt like it, essentially, that me choosing to come in by 10 a.m. and staying to 6 was a totally reasonable schedule. My day really didn't start until 11 a.m. Central, when the majority of my team was on site in California. So there's really no sense in me at the time. There was no sense in me getting to the office by 8 Central when I would end up inevitably staying until 6 or later. Like that was totally unreasonable. So I was like, my team doesn't get in until 9 o'clock Pacific. I think 10 a.m. start time is totally fine. It turns out, though, that someone reported to my manager that I was slacking off on the job, that I was coming in late, I was leaving early, I wasn't doing any work, you name it. They made things up and ranted and raved about me to my manager. Ranted more than raved, but they were just like complaining about me. I found out after I left the company that the person who worked closest to the front door was mad about having to open the door for the first 2 hours of their day, and like totally blew it out of proportion. I was not the receptionist. I was not paid to be at the desk during certain hours. I had it in my job offer that we had flexibility, that we had unlimited PTO, that we could work from home, we could come in whenever suited our schedules. So it just, clearly I'm still a little bit bitter about it, but use this as a bit of a cautionary tale. Like if hybrid work and or a flexible work schedule is allowed at your company, make sure you have it in writing what is and isn't allowed for your specific role in the office. And if it's something where you really need somebody at the desk for those 2 hours every morning, you can find people who want 10 hours a week. You can find somebody, 10 to 15 hours a week. Like you could have them in from 8 to 11, and then there's a little bit of an overlap, like whatever the situation is. But just make sure that whatever your specific role is, if there is a hybrid or work from home or flexible unlimited PTO, like make sure that it's in your employment agreement and that it's adhered to. Like I had it in my job offer that remote work and flexible scheduling was allowed. I had the support of my manager to maintain a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central schedule. So I really wasn't worried about it, but like I was miffed because the person who complained was supposedly a really good friend. And it was really a drag when I left the role and found out who was complaining about me. Like just making sure that you have the benefit in writing that you are allowed to take advantage of the same policy that everybody else does. Just do it. Like people don't always notice administrative work until it's not available on demand. And this person basically saying that they were above opening the door 2 or 3 times, like once an hour basically, was just mind-boggling. Like I thought we were all grown-ups and left that high school stuff behind. But there's no reason that administrative professionals shouldn't also have the option to work inside the same parameters as everyone else. And I fully understand and appreciate it is a privilege and a luxury to have a job that allows remote and or hybrid work, and one that I appreciate every single day. Like in my current role, plenty of people, internal and external, have a lot of things riding on whether or not I do my work. So I don't stress. I didn't stress at the time, and now, like doubly so, I do not stress anyone trying to go behind my back to my executive, because if I stop doing my work, people will notice. My work is critical. I am what Seth Godin might refer to as a linchpin in my organization. If I stop doing my work, people are going to notice, and my work is good. So it speaks for itself. And whether I do it in an office or from anywhere else in the world, it doesn't matter. So the percentage of remoteness, in-officeness, and hybridness, if we can call it that, definitely varies by industry, and honestly, even more so by company. Like there might be some companies that do exactly what you do, who have a super loose, super liberal, flexible work, hybrid work, remote work, whatever it is. And people that are in the same industry but a different company who have a strict, you need to be in the office 8 a.m. every single day. We're going to fire you if you're even 2 minutes late. So whatever your situation is, remote, hybrid, in office, get it in writing, keep a copy of whatever you sign, and refer back to it anytime that you need. Whatever your situation is, again, remote, hybrid, in-office situations can really make or break job offers, and your ability, like it can make or break your ability to stay with a specific industry or company. I'm a huge fan of covering your ASS in any way that you can. So make sure that your situation, whatever it is written down and agreed upon. Like this is definitely something that you can, and I don't like to use the word should, but you should negotiate this to be whatever it is that you need it to be when you're being hired. And if your circumstances change, like if something happens and all of a sudden you are the primary caretaker for a family member, like a little bit of flexibility in your work can really mean a lot. And whatever the situation is, may be where you need that flexibility, like advocate for yourself and get what it is that you need within reason, within what your industry and company can support, and always get it in writing. And that's all for this week. Caitlyn, I hope my thoughts here help. For anyone listening, please stop by askanassistant.com. Lay your questions on me. Sign up for the newsletter if you're feeling fancy. No problems, too big or too small. And please remember, I believe this with all my heart, the only stupid question is the one that you don't ask. Until next week, take care.